This is the magicwordpodcast.com.
Hello, this is Scott Wells for the magicwordpodcast.com. During one of my recent trips to Las Vegas, I had the opportunity to sit down and chat with someone who chronicles the entertainment scene in the Las Vegas area. Specifically, it's not just the Strip, but he's downtown and he's everywhere. And he is involved not only online, but also he is a reporter for the Las Vegas Review-Journal and someone who kind of is everywhere all the time. A few years ago, I had an episode where I sat down with Robin Leach, who was the kingpin, really, of entertainment in general, I should say. He had the lifestyles of the rich and famous, all from all over the world. Well, Johnny specifically works just in the Las Vegas area, but I think really has taken on that new moniker of working with all of the rich and famous in and around the Las Vegas area, certainly. And as a reporter, tells us all about what's going on, what's happening, and has been there for a long time and has basically been there, seen that, and done it all. In fact, just by way of example, for an interesting story, we were supposed to get together to record this episode, but he had to bump me back by a day because there was another opportunity he had with someone he needed to chat with for his own column. So that was with Carlos Santana. Yeah, that guy, the legendary guitarist. So I was bumped by Santana, which is okay with me. Kind of cool. But that's the kind of people he normally associates with and talks with, reporting on those shows and those celebrities who are coming into Las Vegas. And in addition to that, of course, he likes magic and magicians, and he is very well known among the magic community in the Las Vegas area. And in fact, some of you who may have attended the Society of American Magicians convention in 2020 in Las Vegas, there was a roast for Mac King, and among those who were on the dais up there was Johnny Katz. Well, this week we again sat down with Johnny and actually talk a little bit about what's happening in Las Vegas and how the scene has been evolving since we have had not only Cirque du Soleil kind of come and not gone, but they're still there, but not maybe as big as what they were before, and how America's Got Talent has been moving in a lot of people, and how that perhaps may be changing the landscape of Las Vegas. So, if you are thinking about visiting Las Vegas anytime soon, or anytime for that matter, or are interested in the entertainment scene of what's going on there in Sin City, I know that you're going to love this episode. So please enjoy my conversation this week with my guest, Mr. Johnny Katz, here on The Magic Word. Today we are in Las Vegas, and we are here with someone who is a journalist on the entertainment beat in Las Vegas, and someone I have been wanting to talk to for a long time because I keep hearing his name pop up all the time whenever I talk to magicians. Say, well, Johnny Katz this, or he had said this about me, or whatever. Good, bad, or indifferent. They most have all been great, and they've said, what a great guy. You got to meet Johnny Katz, and so I just did, and now you're going to get to meet him too. Please welcome Johnny Katz. Hey there, Johnny.
How you doing, sir? Good to be here.
So glad to have you here. This is great. Yeah, as I said, I remember, I think when I first heard your name, I was at the S.A.M. convention, I believe at the Golden Nugget, and it was during the Mac King roast. And
oh, geez. Yeah, okay.
You remember that, don't you?
Yeah. The short answer is yes, I do remember it.
You were not on the dais, as I recall, though. But you were in the audience.
Here's the deal, Scott. I was going to be on the dais, and I decided, I didn't have time to get any material together to be on the dais. So I said, I'm not going to be on the dais. I'll sit it out. And they're like, oh, gee, okay, whatever. I could tell they were disappointed. And then I saw early before the show, I saw there was a spot for me on the dais. Uh-huh. Like, oh crap!
There's a chair.
It's really a bug out, isn't it? And then Mac's wife came over. Jennifer Sills came over to me, and she said, "Can you say something about Mac? Can you please do something? He would love it." And this is right before the show.
Yeah,
I'm talking within a half hour, and I said, "You know what? Okay, let's do it. I'll go ahead and do it." And so they called me up from my seat at the table, and I did I forget it was a top 10 list of some sort.
Uh-huh.
Headlines you'll never read about Mac King or something like that.
That was something you came up with on the spot?
Yeah. And it played like that, actually. He says, one I did like was a headline that Matt King says, Matt King's wife Jennifer says their honeymoon was magic in a minute. I think it was.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that was a good one. I had a couple of others that landed, but I don't have this. I don't have the. I actually wrote it down. I actually put it down. Whew, anyway, but I did it because Jennifer pressured me into. None of those magicians were going to get me to go up there, but when Jennifer came up to ask me, I'm like, oh geez.
How can you say no to her?
I couldn't.
Right, yeah.
And I did. I felt like I punished myself for procrastinating and not doing the material as I should have. If I had time, I would have been able to do okay.
I'd heard Harrison Greenbaum had a similar thing in which they'd asked him just before that also. Now, he's an improv specialist and a very funny guy, and so he was just writing things like mad. Yeah. He worked out great.
I saw Matt Donnelly in the crowd, who's an improv comic, you know. And he was laughing. So when I saw him laughing, I thought, okay, I'll be able to walk out of here with some measure of dignity. And I kept saying, look, I'm a journalist. I'm a media guy. I'm not. My line has been when I do stuff like that is I'm not an entertainer, and so I'm not going to spend the next 10 minutes proving it. And that usually works. But I even forgot to say that. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was fun. I love Mac.
Yeah.
I love Mac. Yeah.
I assume that you've probably seen the show multiple times.
Oh yeah, Max. Yeah,
and so you're always probably promoting that, I would imagine. And
I'm reticent to use the term promotion in terms of my position because it is a journalism platform, but I do get the word out. My thing is to. I chronicle. That's what I tell people. I'm the chronicler.
I love that word. That's
you know, and you guys, my role in the ecosystem is to find the cool stuff and draw it out and somehow tell those stories somewhere. Yeah. So people understand what a distinctive place is Las Vegas, and that usually explains a lot of it. I don't. I'm not a ripper. I don't do straight reviews. Okay. I don't do full. I'm not a full-time reviewer, but if I find something I like, I'll say it, and it's usually, and I mean it. But you also, on the flip side, if there's something you don't like, or you just not say anything. Yeah, a lot of it doesn't get covered just because I'm focusing on the stuff that is worth covering. That's one thing. Yeah. But I will say that something is substandard. I have done that. Over the years, something that can be made better. To maintain your credibility, you got to say both sides. I can't. Yeah, you can't just be all fluff, rosy all the time. Yeah, and but we. So that's usually how it is. And I've in the magic community, magic is a very subjective form of entertainment. What do you mean by that? Well, it's if you're not carried away by magic generally. You're probably not going to be carried away by a specific magician. If you think that this, whether it's close-up magic or big illusions, if that's not your thing, it's just not going to be. You're not going to find a use for it, and it's hard to explain to people who aren't into magic why something is great and isn't. So they kind of have to like that to begin with, coming into that, liking magic. And, I think so. Yeah. Well, they've often said about magicians, if you see a bad magician, say you hire a bad magician, they probably won't be hiring a magician at all next time. If you hire a bad pianist or a bad, band, it's like, I don't like them, but we'll hire someone else next time. You know what I mean? Right. I think there is more groupthink in magic than maybe other entertainment mediums. Music is a good example of that because, you can see somebody who's, you could have a cover band that you don't want, that didn't hit the mark, and then you'll find another cover band, right? The next time, or go to another cover band, or go to different music, right. But we are fortunate here in Las Vegas to have very high caliber and for the most part, very experienced magicians, people who have a lot of stage time, people who've been doing it. Well, they wouldn't be in Vegas without that. Exactly. They wouldn't last long. Yeah, they got other bad shows out of the way before they got here, and that's. That's become apparent. In magic, you can do magic in so many different formats. I know there's a limited number of things you can do, but you can perform it in different. You can have grand scales, up close, afternoon for families, late night, adult themed shows if you wanted to, and Las Vegas, of course, has been a destination for generations for magicians.
But it has changed also, Johnny, I would think, from the standpoint where it used to be casino-sponsored shows to being four-walled, where people can come in if you have the money, which you have to have a lot, to run for a while because of all the advertising and things to get people and put butts in the seats and all the half-price tickets and everything you have to do to comp or whatever, eventually to start making money. But it used to be the casino was the one taking the responsibility. And so now I think anybody who's got the background, that I should say finances, and not necessarily the skill, can actually get a room.
Well, it depends on. You're right. The four wall has been around Las Vegas now for about 20 years. This is not something that just started.
Was that David Saxe kind of got that?
Saxe has turned it more into a model of practice. I think he would be one among the first to ever do a four wall. I think he had. Oh man, what was his first four-wall show? It might have been.
It wasn't Melinda's, was it?
No, I don't know if it was the first. I think that he worked with her on Rent when he had her, but I don't know if that was the first.
Were you here back then?
Yeah. Robert Goulet did a four-wall, if I remember properly. That was a big first thing because he rented a room at the Venetian.
Yeah.
And where Saxe at the time was doing business, and we thought, wow, that's interesting. Bob Goulet's just putting his own money into this thing, and that was. But Saxe has turned it into, a business model for all of his theaters, or for most of his theaters at the Miracle Mile Shops at Planet Hollywood. George Wallace was one who, in the mid 2000s, when he started at the Flamingo showroom. He was four-walling, and he was saying that, you know what, it's different. It's my money, it's my responsibility, but it's also my room when I'm doing it. And so George started bringing in acts during his show, including the band Mosaic, the vocal band. He got them there started. We were doing 10, 20-minute sets in the middle of his show. They're still around doing corporates, Mosaic, that kind of thing. He'd bring in Chris Tucker as a comedian who would be performing, somewhere on the strip, and he'd just drop in to do 10, 20. Seinfeld came in one night, at least one night, probably multiple nights, into George's show to perform. One time he had Sly and the Family Stone perform under his It was April Fool's Day 2007. I'll never forget it because I thought George was playing an April Fool's joke. That was under his four-wall agreement also. And so the idea was that, there is some benefit, but George also had to hustle. He also had to go to all the concierges. He had to go to the timeshare places and provide discount tickets and
because it was all on his nickel, basically.
That was his job. Yeah, and the hotel under these agreements typically will help with some marketing, on property marketing. And you can utilize their in-house public relations team if you want to, and have your own supplemental.
Right.
Yeah, that's part of it. But four-wall, people say, "Oh yeah, I can if as long as I have the money." I always say this. This is my example. I say, if you think that the Johnny juggling hubcap show can be moved into any venue just because I have money, not so fast, because there are casino overlords or entertainment officials on these properties who are in charge of quality control. They have to sign the deal too, even though they're a landlord. It's like any other landlord. Who do you want living in your house?
Good point.
And so it's not just I've got the Crapola, the musical, and I'm going to put it into the Harrah's showroom. You have to prove, you have to give them your deck, an explanation of how this is going to work. If you have a showcase, they'll go and see it. Yeah. And there's a lot of steps that go into performing as a four-wall. It's not just that you have a check.
Are some of the casinos still doing it themselves, or is that model gone completely away?
Casino-owned shows. We just had one.
I mean, Celine Dion, for an example. Is she four-walling that? Or
the Celine Dion show is promoted and produced by AEG Presents, who has an exclusive booking deal with Resorts World Las Vegas, where the theater is. So it's what we would call more of a two-wall, where they both split the profits there. Resorts World owns the theater. AEG brings in their own touring or own artists, headlining artists, to play the room, and their own ticketing operation and all that. So it's too grand of scale to just say it's a simple four-wall deal, but it's a partnership. Cirque du Soleil's under the same type of thing with MGM Resorts International. More of a two-wall. They have an exclusive performance contract, and the theaters they're in right now with MGM and at Treasure Island, which is not MGM. It's independently owned by Phil Ruffin. But those agreements are that Cirque du Soleil will perform in those shows. It's just up to Cirque to provide the content.
Gotcha. Right. And whenever Treasure Island went to TI, now Stratosphere is going to Strat, these different things, does that have to do with rebranding, or is that a new ownership?
Both. Rebranding and refresh. They're trying to hip up the titles.
Sure.
I think the TI was already on its way from Treasure Island when Ruffin bought it, but they're going with TI, and Treasure Island was known as a Steve Wynn entity originally. The Treasure Island situation, that model is very interesting, because the idea originally was that it was just going to be the second tower for the Mirage.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that. That was Steve Wynn's idea, was just to develop and he thought, we can theme this out and make it a thing, So he went with the Treasure Island theme. It's kind of,
And back then they had the two pirate ships.
The pirate ship thing was a big draw. Yeah, it was back when free shows were far more prevalent than they are now, and then they went to the Sirens at TI and made it an adult show. That's what the Treasure Island was. When they pulled the ship show out and kind of got away from the aggressive branding, they went to TI.
Okay.
So you wouldn't think of Treasure Island. They didn't want you to think of Treasure Island. Changed the signage. They changed the logos to the letters, because you see this occasionally with branded hotels that are named for a destination or a thing. There was a thought years ago, probably 15, 16 years ago, that Luxor was going to change its name because they didn't want to be branded that way.
What were they going to go to, like the Lux or something? Or?
They were going to go with a pyramid, and was the talk. But the thing was, there's an arena. Is it in Memphis? It's called the Pyramid. It's somewhere in Tennessee. It's called the. There was that, and also you find you don't want to overthink these brands, because Luxor is very well known as a brand and as a name and as a visual brand. You don't want to mess with it. You don't want to screw around with something that's working so well. And they did market testing. They said people know the Luxor, whether we like it or not. People understand what it is. They know what it looks like. It's a very famous combination,
Egyptian theme kind of a thing.
Yeah, it's a very famous image and brand.
Landmark.
Yes, so they even inside the hotel they've gotten away from that Egyptian theme in a lot of ways.
I haven't been there in a while. Is that right?
Yeah, they've gotten away with it, like the Nile River thing that they used to do is out.
And those statues of the pharaohs and all that, when you go in,
they're still there.
Okay,
that's a lot to take out, but they've been getting away from some of that branding around the hotel, but it's still a Luxor. The Strat. I did change when they changed ownership. The Stratosphere they thought was a mouthful. They wanted to refresh the hotel. They wanted to give it a more contemporary look. They changed the color scheme to the blue, which they like a lot, while still maintaining that the obvious draw is that gigantic tower, that needle. And
like a Space Needle, from Seattle.
Yeah. Double the size, I think, or the height of it.
Is it?
At its tip. It's very high. What is the Space Needle? Is it 600 feet? It's 1,100 feet from base to tip at the Stratosphere, at the Strat, I should say.
Yeah.
So they're playing off on that. And then another thing at the Strat that they've done since they've established new ownership is they've made a very compelling point that they're on the Strip. And if you're a Las Vegan, that's a point of contention, because
big difference. Like the Hard Rock was off the Strip.
Yeah, well, the Hard Rock is off the Strip. It's off Las Vegas Boulevard. The Strip, the Clark County officials will tell you the Strip starts at Sahara Avenue and runs down to Mandalay Bay Road. I think is the barrier. It runs just past Mandalay Bay. My feeling
pretty much to that Las Vegas sign.
Yeah, I say the sign is the one tent post, and the Strat is the other.
Yeah, the end. Yeah.
Yeah, because my reasoning is I don't care what the elected officials say or even how you zone it. If you're on Las Vegas Boulevard and you want to if you want to show somebody a photo of the Strip, you have to have the Strat in it. that should be in the photo because it's such an iconic image. And this Welcome to Las Vegas sign should be the southernmost point, just from a civic
And then between
standpoint.
you have the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah, the Eiffel Tower, and now the wheel, or the high roller.
High roller, yeah.
Yeah, it's all changing. Now we're going to have the Sphere, which isn't actually on the boulevard, but it's at the Palazzo, the new music hall that's going up. That's going to be up in a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to change the design too. So it's a fluid thing. But you're right. You didn't used to be an Eiffel Tower. They didn't used to be the fountains. There didn't used to be even the Strat itself.
Well,
in the mid '90s wasn't around.
Some time ago, a couple of years ago, I spoke with Robin Leach, and I was asking him, from his perspective, having seen Las Vegas go through so many different changes, and for the years that you've been here, that's one of the reasons I wanted to chat with you also, is to kind of see how it has evolved, but, and in particular, as it is now, let's say where Cirque du Soleil had come in and changed things, just like Siegfried and Roy changed things, now Cirque has changed things, and now we're having America's Got Talent. AGT is going to be coming in to the Luxor here soon, and are they kind of taking over? I mean, they have also some talent, obviously, Shin Lim and Colin McLeod, who are playing at Mirage, I believe.
Yeah.
And these, of course, Matt Franco at the Link and other guys who. So in other words, AGT's got its hooks into Vegas as well. So.
Yeah, AGT is a symbiotic relationship because we have in Las Vegas fed that show too.
Oh, that's a good point.
Those are people who have performed here.
Yeah.
A lot of them. You just named. We've had 3 champions currently performing in Las Vegas. One of whom was a lounge performer in Las Vegas who came out of Las Vegas and won it. That's Michael Grimm. He won America's Got Talent. He's back to about the level he was when he won. Michael Grimm. He won season 4.
Was he a singer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Rock, folk rock,
okay.
southern rock.
Well, I remember Terry Fader also.
And Fader was earlier even than Grimm. I think he was the second season.
I think so.
Early, and so the point is that it's a reciprocal.
Yeah, it's very symbiotic. It's a good word for it.
Yeah. So we provide a lot of talent, but then a lot of that talent comes back to us. Dangerous Games, for example, they were in a SAC show, and they were in also in some other stage show.
Yeah.
I think they were in They definitely were in Celestia, and I think they were in that show when they auditioned for AGT. They ended up in the finals, and now they're in the show at the Luxor.
Okay.
At Luxor, those two. They're a Vegas act, but they were a Vegas act before AGT. So you'll see, Murray, who's on the show,
right?
Xavier Mortimer on the show, out of Las Vegas. Piff the Magic Dragon.
Oh, Piff, they're a perfect example. Yeah.
Piff has done as much with AGT as anybody. Tape Face is another one, by the way.
Yeah.
Another one. But Piff is interesting because
I've not seen Tape Face's show, but I understand it is amazing.
It is really interesting. It's a really, really fulfilling night of inventive comedy. Yeah, he's Sam Wills is the actor's name who performs him, and Sam could do a 90-minute show spoken. He doesn't have to use the tape. Yeah.
Okay, very funny guy.
He's very funny, and he's got a lot of material. He's really inventive, and
so he's kind of like a quiet Carrot Top from the standpoint of being a prop comic.
He would be a good comparison would be a silent Carrot Top. He's in that realm of using items in a unique way.
Yeah.
I don't want to just say just a prop comic, but he will.
Sure.
Everything's available to these guys. I'm pro prop myself, because if you can make somebody laugh, whether it's with a toothbrush or just through a monologue, whatever it is, go for it.
Exactly.
But that's an AGT guy too, as Sam. But Piff has managed to market that show very inventively. It's almost like duh. It's like he going on the show, and all he wanted to really do was get on TV and get in front of a national audience. After that, he wasn't interested in winning it outright. He just wanted to stay on TV long enough to make a mark, because he could then turn around and say he lost the show, because he's very self-deprecating. Loser of America's Got Talent, even though he finished in the top 5. 10,000 auditioners he beat. But he's like, I talked to him, John Vanderput, and like, poor Piff. Poor Piff, suffering through life as the loser of America's Day. It's really tough to be you.
That's kind of like Hertz #2. You remember? Or Avis #2.
Avis.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's that mentality. Yeah. It's the silver medalist. So yeah, AGT. What I'm interested in on the topic of AGT is how that stage show at Luxor is going to do, because it's in competition with a lot of their champions now. That's with the same tickets.
And it's a big house. Isn't it like a 2,000-seat house?
It's 1,600.
Okay, because that was where Chris Angel was.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and before that theater opened with the Blue Man Group. It was originally the theater, and then Chris remodeled it. They had some headliners in there for a while. Hairspray played in there for a minute. And Run, the Cirque du Soleil show, was in there for about 5 weeks. And it's a beautiful theater. It's big, and they're coming in with their spoken word champion.
Oh, I
Brandon
saw that
Leake.
guy. Yeah, mm-hmm.
He's one of them.
He was phenomenal.
Yeah, and so we're going to put that to the test, how the range of AGT is going to be able to play when you're walking in, and they're taking the competition tension out of it. You're just going up there and performing.
Right.
So now it's a different show. Brandon Leake's not competing with anybody. He's just out there doing his thing.
Right.
So you're looking at the show with a little less. There's a little less intrigue and more emphasis on actually delivering a show. And is
the content.
And is a spoken word artist going to be enough as your headline?
And how long could you listen to that? Could that be a 90-minute show?
Well, it's not going to be 90. He'll be in rotation with some
variety.
Yeah, he'll be in a 15-minute set.
Yeah,
but still, he's. I like the fact that Simon Cowell and his company, and Simon Painter is one of the producers, are really embracing Vegas with this show, because they love, especially Cowell loves the idea of putting this kind of variety show in Las Vegas. He's always wanted to do that instead of having it pieced around the Strip.
Right,
consolidating that brand and putting it in a single theater. And I've always felt you might see this the same way too, Scott. Is AGT is the modern day Ed Sullivan show.
Exactly.
That's the best example I can think. And if you were a plate spinner, or if you can balance yourself on a needle, AGT is there.
Or even before that would have been the Arthur Godfrey show.
Yeah.
For some of the really old people who.
I was talking to Cal about that show. Yeah, not many people know that title, but it was Arthur Godfrey had Anne Margaret on the show.
Really?
She started there, and I have got to verify that this happened. But it's a classic story that Anne Margaret lost on the I think it was the Godfrey show. Or was it or that was the other one, the Ted Mack Amateur Hour?
Ted Mack Amateur Hour.
It was one of those shows where she lost to a guy who played the spoons. And
that gotta make you feel bad.
I've got to get to the bottom of this. I talked to Cal about it, and I said, "Did that really happen?" He goes, "You could have. Do you think?" And we're both going, "I don't know."
Anne Margaret's still around.
Yeah, she's going to get a star on the Walk of Fame.
I know people who know her.
I know. Stupidly, I interviewed her not long ago because she was getting a star on the Walk of Stars, and I forgot to ask her. I mean, it's not a star on the Walk. She's going to get a star on the Walk, so she was getting into the Hall of Fame.
Oh, so when she comes back, there you go.
That's it. I got to remember this. But you're talking to Anne Margaret, and you kind of get. I get flustered.
Oh yeah, what a beautiful woman, even at her age.
And then you're talking about Elvis, and you're talking to someone who's really an icon.
Exactly.
Especially in Las Vegas. I'm like, I can't believe this woman's talking to me.
Yeah.
But anyway, the long and short of it is she got her start that way.
What about the Cirque shows? Have they kind of waned, you think? Or are they, because again, that's what I'm saying, the rise of AGT kinds of shows, is that true?
I think
those are big extravaganzas.
Yeah, Cirque's had big shows here.
They've taken over like from Jubilee and those other big shows, kind of thing.
The scale of Cirque belongs pretty much to Cirque now. They have supplanted the lavish feather
Splash
shows,
and all that.
And shows like Splash, and even Le Rev later. It went. If you want to talk about a hotel that owned a show, Le Rev at Wynn Las Vegas was the hotel owned that, and they paid their performers like employees. That was the old model.
Oh yeah,
and they closed it during COVID. But Cirque hasn't waned. I think Cirque's the dimensions of the Cirque show, the scale of the Cirque show is probably topped out now. They might have room for one more, possibly. There's a debate about whether it's going to be whether Caw will actually come back. The fifth show that's going to open this year, Love opens next week, and MJ1 just opened. As we talk now, it's going to open on September or August 26th. Will have opened, and Caw is now moved back its start from October to November, and it's the biggest and most expensive of the Cirque shows left. It's the most expensive,
right?
And
a lot of moving parts there.
A lot. I mean, literally a lot of moving parts. That stage, if you've ever seen Caw, folks, it's like. It's got a stage that moves up parallel to the audience. It's facing. You do a final battle scene where the performers are running up and down. On a stage that has been positioned, perpendicular to the regular stage with a 90-foot drop underneath it, and it's a big show, man. And they have yet to really announce an on sale date for that show or an opening date.
Yeah.
If they can do that, they'll and Cirque's always talk about doing something else. They want to put something in one of its holdings in New York Theater where Humanity was. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of talk that'll be the Illusionists, but we aren't sure of that yet. They own a lot of stuff. They own Blue Man.
Will the Illusionists be a permanent show also, or are they just going to be coming through for a 1-month stand?
The idea has been to bring in the Illusionists as a residency show pre-COVID.
Okay. Oh.
But that right now, with the way the ticketing and everything is going, you're not sure of that. And the Illusionists is also expensive in its own way because you got to finance multiple magicians rather than just
true.
one.
Yeah, and they're all stars.
Yeah, they're all great. That's the draw of the show. I think
Sure.
Shin was in that in New York before he came out here, and
Jeff Hobson, Kevin James,
Kevin James, and Cloud over at with
Colin McLeod.
Colin McLeod,
Mm-hmm.
Colin Cloud,
yeah,
yeah, with Shin.
I've known Colin since he was in Aberdeen.
I haven't
in high
seen
school.
him.
He's a great guy.
I've heard
Love
he's
the kid.
amazing. Yeah, Shin loves him.
Yeah. Apparently they get along really well, and it was nice. Or again, a symbiotic relationship, and I think they kind of help each other because Shin won, but Colin is the one I think who is the talking act that kind of brings people in, and there's two different. One is sleight of hand, the other one is more mental, kind of mind reading,
forensic.
Forensic,
I like that
like Sherlock
term.
Holmes. Exactly, he's got a different. Kind
I like
of
they
angle.
both have the same kind of attitude about what they do. Like Shin will tell me, I'm not trying to pretend I can do anything superhuman. I'm just
skilled at sleight of hand.
Yeah, I'm going to blow your mind, but I can't really walk on air, okay?
Yeah.
But he has done a couple of up-close sleight of hand bits with me that just still, like...
Blown you away?
Still, yeah, the other day, it was about, I would say, whenever he opened, mid-July, when he opened. It was the opening, it was the day he opened. We were in there the day and that night he was going to open, and we were doing audio interview and a photo shoot. We had video there too, and we wanted him to do some video where he was doing what do they call it? Cardistry?
Yes, cardistry. Yeah. Boy, that's good.
Yeah.
I mean, for a non-magician,
I didn't know it before that day.
Okay.
But he said the word cardistry. And I said, that's very clever.
Yeah.
He goes, well, that's what we call it. And I go, I was going to give you credit for making it up. So he was doing it, and then our videographer said, how can you do a
little flourish or something?
Well, he did the flourishes, but she wanted him to do a trick. Mm-hmm. Can you do a trick? And he goes, well, can we have Cats come over and be my my shill or whatever.
Yeah, volunteer.
The audience participation. So we sat on the stage, and he took out. He had me pick a card, and I memorized the card, and I handed it back to him, and he tore the corner off. Mm-hmm. And then he took the corner and pressed it in his thumb and forefinger right in front of my face, and it disappeared, gone. Okay. Now this is for a magician. This is probably rote. This is probably something. Oh yeah, you fell for whatever the trick is. I'm
blown away.
I'm just a meager media guy. Okay, and I went.
And so we can stop right there. You're done. It's like, this is great.
Yeah, that's the trick.
Yeah.
And I go, wow. And we had video going, our own. We decided where to shoot it too.
Yeah.
On the stage under the light, we had another position where I was interviewing him in the theater, and our videographer asked us to move. Another thing that happened. So we're in our own. We have dictated the terms of this. And then he asked me to stand up. We're sitting on the lip of the stage, and he says, "Why don't you stand up?" And I look down. I stand up, and I look down, and there's the corner of the card under me.
Okay.
He hadn't touched me. He hadn't. I was looking at him the whole time.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the? And he goes, grab it, and I grab it. And he goes, now let's see. He turns to the camera. Now let's see if it fits. And I go, oh, come on. Like it's not going to fit. Like there's a corner of a 10 of spades hanging around this room. It's not going to fit. There's 10 of spade corners everywhere in this room. Anyway, that's the kind of thing I like.
Yeah.
I loved it, man.
Yeah.
I thought he was brilliant. And, these guys do stuff. Like Murray still will do stuff that I'm like, what the hell? It's like, it's classic, but I'm still like, what? The delivery, Murray especially, I love his delivery. He's just so precise and boom, boom, boom.
Yes.
And comes after
Fast
you. And
paced.
yeah.
It's fun.
He's done it. You can tell he's done this before.
Well, you can tell also, I would imagine, there are a lot of styles with all the magicians. I mean, Matt King is different from Murray, who is different from Piff, and everyone who is there. Yeah, I'm talking about some comedy magicians there, but then even illusionists, let's say like Joseph Gabriel, doing doves, or from Kevin James or whomever else.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, God, I just saw Xavier Mortimer over at the Strat. That's an interesting show. That's a very...
It's hard to explain that show because it's not a magic show, but he does magic.
It's really a storytelling adventure.
That's a good way of putting it.
He does some brutally impressive routines, and he's got 12 bits, 12 acts, and he's done 4 that are new. And but it's really him. It's really him describing his life and how he came to be in Las Vegas. Yeah. Xavier's a trained mime. He went to mime school. So when I was interviewing him, I learned a lot about mime school. Mime school is not for the meek. Mime school is tough. The way he described it sounded like a military camp.
Really? Wow.
I'm going to give mimes more credit, more respect.
I did not know that.
He's like, they wake you up at 6 a.m. and you have to, go, geez, you're all lined up and you're fighting the wind upon sunrise. What is this mime torture chamber? And but it's very appealing, and that stands on its own. You look at a guy like Copperfield, who's known for so many big things, but you go into a show and it's a very warm, storytelling Disney-esque environment. He's got the space, the spacecraft, spaceship, the little alien guy. The little dude, whatever his name is, and he walks around the stage, and he's animatronic, but he's three-dimensional and fluid, and you're watching him. And I told Copperfield one time on his show, I said, you should take that little dude, he has a name, I can't remember what it is, and take him out in the casino. We just let him run free, Just let him go up to the bar and play video poker for a while.
Yeah.
Just mess with people. And then you have Chris Angel, who's built like a full-scale, like a nightclub show that just comes at you, and there's power and velocity and aggression in it and rock and roll.
Right.
That's a whole different thing than when you go see Matt King. And it's still in the magic realm.
Right. Now, when you see some of these shows, let's say David Copperfield, for an example, over the number of years that you have and the number of times you've seen his show evolve, and some things be taken out and put back in or anything. And as you develop relationships with some of these guys, do you enjoy some things better than others and say, I wish he would have kept this in? Or do you ever talk with him, or they ever ask you your advice? Or
I have talked about some of the different routines and shows. The bullet catch was one that I liked a lot. I understood why Penn and Teller didn't have it in there. There's a moment in that show too, what I've talked to those guys about, where Teller's silent on stage as a rule, but he's really not.
He's very articulate.
Off stage he's great. It's one of the great tragedies that people don't know about is how articulate Teller is. He's really great verbally. But on stage there is a moment in the show, without spoiling anything, where you do hear his voice. And I've always thought that was very interesting, and I've questioned why. And I've talked to Teller about this in formal interviews, like, why isn't he more verbal? Why doesn't he go ahead? Because Penn is so dominant and so the focus of attention by design to be the narrator. But his thing was that his silence will force you to pay attention to what he's doing.
That's like what I've heard, a technique for actors. If you whisper, the audience will lean forward. They will listen more intently than if you're speaking in a normal voice. So if you're just kind of... I've noticed that like on television also. Sometimes they tend to go like this, and they're kind of talking. It's like, wait a minute, I got to turn it up a little bit.
It galvanizes the attention. I understand why he does that. And it takes a great deal of confidence in your craft to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, it really does. You see singers do that once in a while. Clint Holmes here in Las Vegas is masterful at using pauses. At using silence in his act. And magicians can be that way, too. I mean, Teller does it all the time. But, I've heard stories. Like one story that Clint Holmes tells what he saw Sammy play, I think it was Caesar's Palace at the Circus Maximus. And Sammy sang a song, and he stopped the song, and he decided to walk over to the piano. And he walked over to the piano without saying a word. And he went over there and he had a drink on the piano. He had a cigarette going on the piano. And he took a drag off the cigarette and put out the ash, and he took a drink, and he said, "Thank you. Our next song."
Just stop it in the middle of the song.
It was at the end of a song, but it was like there was a gap, and he's like, "Thank you," to respond to the, and then he turns to the man, "Where were we now?" Like, it was very cool. And Holmes was like, you knew everybody in the whole place was just watching Sammy walk across the stage, just couldn't take their eyes off him. What's he going to do?
Well, I saw Sammy Davis Jr. perform, and what impressed me was how he broke that fourth wall, because there were people in the audience, I remember saying, "Play Mr. Bojangles." He said, "No, I just don't feel like it." And he was responding to that. And then someone yelled it again. He said, "I'm sorry, I'm just not feeling it tonight, and I want to be honest with you, and these are the songs I want to present to you from my heart, and that's just not one of them I feel tonight." And I heard a couple nights later that Shirley MacLaine was in the audience, and she was actually part of the Rat Pack, and since he was there, he just poured it all out. And he was like, I'm playing for you,
That's great.
And
that's a night you want to be in the audience.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Sammy Davis Jr. was the kind of star to get away with that. Now, if we have all these superstar headliners, and if like Sting is coming to town, for example, and if Sting doesn't play the hits, if he doesn't play Every Breath You Take or Don't Stand So Close to Me, or they call them the riot songs, because if you don't play them, there will be a riot. There's going to be blowback.
Yeah.
You're not. There's rare is
different
the
audiences
performer.
today, maybe.
Yeah, well, when you come to Las Vegas, as we've talked about, you have a lot of choices.
Yeah.
And if you've decided you're going to spend your money on a Lady Gaga show or an Usher show or Gwen Stefani, you're there to be treated to hits. You're there for the familiar material, not for them to run through an interpretation of their latest album, an acoustic set from the latest album. That's the classic line.
Yeah.
The bathroom set, that's what we would call it. When everybody goes to the bathroom. But yeah, so it's in those days you could get away with more inventive set list use. Elvis, had a lot of invention and moving around in his set list. It wasn't just a bunch of Elvis songs.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you really feel like that Magic, though, also is here to stay for Las Vegas?
Yeah.
Because for a long time it didn't play, but then now you have such a variety. And why do you think that's the case?
I do, because we're the way Las Vegas's tourism community has grown. Those who come to Las Vegas. It's of course far more of an international audience than it used to be.
Good point.
There's more of them. Before pandemic, we were looking at 44 million visitors a year in Las Vegas, and a lot of them have families. A lot of them have different tastes, and Magic can help satisfy all those different variables somehow. And the sheer volume of people, it's interesting because families. I look at how that. If you were to bring a family in Las Vegas, what are you going to take them to? A magic show is going to, blow their minds. I've got a 7-year-old nephew just turned 8 years old, and my brother's like, "Yeah, we're going to take Austin to Las Vegas," and he loves sports. I go, "We can take him to the Golden Knights," and I started thinking, what show is Austin going to like? And I started thinking of a Murray. I started thinking of a Xavier. I started thinking of the Magic world, because that's an easy an easy thing to anticipate. I know
it's safe and entertaining.
I know he's going to like it. I can't guarantee that he will necessarily like or I don't know that he's going to be blown away by Gwen Stefani necessarily. But a good night of Magic will take him away. A good afternoon of Magic will take him away. So that matters. And I live here, and when families visit me, they rely on me to lead them in the right direction.
And what do you say? What is your recommendation when you say people coming to Vegas?
For Magic?
Well, not necessarily. Just in general, saying, here are some must-see shows.
It depends on your tolerance of sense of humor, frankly. Because I'll send everybody to Spiegel World first, and that's Absinthe, Atomic Saloon Show, and Opium.
Okay.
And those are...
all Cirque shows?
Those are all Spiegel World shows.
Spiegel show, okay.
Yeah, but they're all really raunchy.
Okay.
So you have to qualify. If they can't take raunchy, then you dial it down and say, okay. I think that... I think a good headliner show, I think Jazz and Piano is about the best thing going that Lady Gaga does. As far as stage shows, I don't think you can go wrong with MJ1 or Love if you would all like that music. If you're a grown-up, all the Cirque du Soleil shows are great. A kid will probably be more into Mystère than the others for Cirque. So I like that. I like there's some underdogs out there. I was just with Gregory Popovich. His pet
theater show at V Theater is always fun. I can't help but laugh at that guy, man. He's been in Las Vegas for 20 plus years.
Wow.
From the Moscow Circus, and he plays with dogs and cats. He's funny. He's funny. And Zombie Burlesque is another one. It's an adult show. It's a burlesque, obviously, type
Remember
show.
Steve Daly or Tiny Bubbles used to be on that show.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. And Enoch Augustus Scott, who plays the lead character, it's a spoof of the Attack of the 50-Foot Woman.
Oh.
With a zombie element. 50s horror films.
Yeah.
And adult dancing and comedy and stuff. That's really funny. That show is an underdog still. It was the last show that performed in Las Vegas before the shutdown in March of 2020. Last one off the stage.
Yeah.
Really funny. So those are the, kind of the comedy clubs are all good. They're
What about the Extravaganza at Bally's?
Yeah, that's another one that would probably be good for full families. There's a couple of acts in there that I really like. I like Sylvia.
With a crossbow act.
Yeah. She's, I think she's closing that show. She's in it. I like her a lot. There's some. I'll tell you, it's kitschy in a lot of areas. Yeah. It's definitely.
That's why I think if people want to see a bit of what Las Vegas used to be like, that's without the topless showgirls. I mean, it's a good family kind of thing.
If you're into that and you're into kind of the sample platter of old Las Vegas,
there you go.
And it's also, for those of us who've been here for a while, it's certainly an outside-in look at Las Vegas from someone who's coming outside the area. A very adoring look at Las Vegas, but it's like, this is what the world sees Las Vegas as.
Yeah.
And that's Extravaganza. I'm, Scott, a sucker for plate spinners. I don't know
that guy.
I just love a good plate spinner. Yeah, that's her husband. Oh, God, I can't remember his name now.
I can't either.
Sylvia's husband.
But he's been around for a long number of years, and he's from like Italy or someplace, I guess, and he's big over in Europe, I understand.
Yes, they are. He is. And you can tell another one who's done a lot of shows. And they were both in WOW, which is also reopened at Rio, and it's the same type of show as Extravaganza. So that was the first one. Extravaganza came out. They opened on March 16th, I think, of 2020, or 12th, or somewhere in there. They played one run of the show, and they shut it down. They had one show, and then they went dark for that whole period of time. And then when they allowed us to have restricted audiences of like 50 people, they brought Extravaganza back in the Jubilee Theater.
Wow.
So you can imagine there are more performers
on
in
the stage.
Show. Yes.
There are in the audience.
Yes, sir. We counted 56 on stage total and 50 in the crowd and in the audience. And so you're sitting there watching this by nature Extravaganza. It's a big show. And you're looking around and you're the only one like in the entire area. And it was just surreal.
Yeah.
It was.
It's like you're having a personal show for yourself, It's like you're the king. It's like
it was like watching an audition, It was good though. They did great. It was noble. I say that about that show. It was a noble effort. And but it's another one. The WOW and Extravaganza are pretty much the same flavor show. Same variety.
Is there some magic show or magician that you could say is one of your favorites? I mean, when I was talking like with Robin Leach, he said I really like Bill Malone. Now, I don't know if you know who Bill Malone is because he doesn't have a Vegas show. He's just a close-up magician, and he said I love Bill. And I just wonder if there has been a magician like you were talking about Shin for an example.
Yeah,
whether he's been in Vegas or someplace else you may have seen somewhere.
I will tell you that. My go-to is usually Mac King.
Yeah.
I think that he's
solid.
He's super solid, and he's universally appealing. I have taken friends and their kids to his show. I've gone with my girlfriend. I've gone over the course of time with other people, and it's always great. I also am a big fan of Penn and Teller.
Oh yeah.
Primarily because they're always advancing their cause. They completely readjusted their show during shutdown when they didn't have to, and they've got the pygmy elephant, Elsie, the spotted African pygmy elephant routine at the end of that show. That is, it took them a couple years and $500,000 to perfect this bit, but it's worth every damn dime, man. It is great.
So that's taking the place of the bullet case.
Yeah.
Now, tell me again, we were talking just before we got on microphone about the shutdown that caused them to stop. I'm sorry, not the shutdown, but when they had the Luxor shooting.
Yeah,
and so that's why they got rid of the bullet catch.
I think it's a more of a general idea, and I can't speak for them, but I do know that when that happened, there was no appetite for firearms on stage in Las Vegas. Very little. They may have pulled it down even before then, because we had a lot of mass shootings across the country.
That's
and
true.
to have a firearm on stage can be, you don't want to stop the audience, or take the audience in a different direction. So those guys really understand that.
Yes.
I mean, they've even told me that bringing out a newspaper right now is something that takes the audience in a different direction. Because a lot of them are going, "What's that?"
Well, it's like at Banachek's show right now. He's at the Strat, and when he brings out the Yellow Pages, he said, "This is an antique." He said, "So when you handle it, be careful. Don't
That's a good line.
bend it or rip the pages." Let me explain what the Yellow Pages are.
Carrot Top has this thing where he has a prop where he's like God, what is it? It's let me think about this. It's a cookbook for novice chefs.
Yeah.
And he brings out, it's a phone connected to the Yellow Pages where you can look up a restaurant.
Okay.
But even that, people are like, well, I'm trying to get what that is. What's
Yeah.
the-"
You have to explain what Yellow Pages are.
Yeah, that's Yellow Pages, right. That's the thing. People don't know. There's a whole generation doesn't understand what Yellow Pages are about.
Yeah.
So, that you do run into that once in a while, but it's it's part of comedy.
Yeah.
You got to grow with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you think then the future is? We'll start to wrap up over here then with this, as far as magic and the direction of entertainment in general, and maybe how magic may play a part in that, or do you think there will be continuation and a thirst for these larger shows? Certainly there is a thirst for larger casinos because they keep tearing down things and building up new ones, keeping in mind about how the water supply is going down and over in Lake Mead. And as a result of that, which is something that helps feeds the electricity over here, of having some issue, let's say 20 years from now. I mean, that's got to be something they've got to look at.
That's the general, that is the big concern in our region, not just Las Vegas, or all of the West.
Yeah.
I think we're going to have to. We're dealing with that challenge even right now. When you start talking about subsidizing farmers in Arizona and California not to grow crops, so you can save water, it sounds like a good mathematic solution, but it's also that's
recipe
food.
for disaster. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where are we going to get our food? Yeah.
Yeah, and we have a culinary industry here too, by the way.
Oh, good point.
Yeah, so we're still watch for that, but I think. All things being equal, I think that the entertainment culture in Las Vegas will always have room for magicians of all types. It's just been proven. It's not just recently. We're going back to, I think, I think the Siegfried and Roy era was what really triggered this whole thing. When they were able to come out of come out of the context of being a side act and do a major show on their own. It took magic to a whole different level here in Las Vegas. Lance Burton. Another one, came in as a resident performer and showed that you could be a traditional magician in Las Vegas over time. What Copperfield has been able to achieve, he's still running 15 shows a week. Some of the scale that you see coming in after that is just mind blowing.
Right.
But you still have room for for those who don't need. Like Shin Lim says, no big boxes on this stage, man.
Right. Well, and also Matt Franco's show. I think
and Matt's
it's
great.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's
Matt
got
is
a big
great.
stage show, and he fills the house every night. And it's interesting in which he only has one major illusion.
Yeah, and he does. He's a great card guy too.
Yeah.
Matt's just a great personality. Yeah, I went and saw him. I've forgotten how much I enjoy him. And he's run. God, what is this? He's had his 5th anniversary over there.
Has
recently.
it been that long?
Yeah.
Already? Holy moly.
Right? And he still looks like he's 14 years old. The guy,
does.
what is that? That's the magic.
He's
great guy.
He's got a picture in the attic.
Yeah. Great guy, great draw. He's taken his AGT championship, and he's made judicious reappearances on that show to remind people that he's on that he's on national TV right when he needs to be. Another one, I think that
Is Nathan Burton still in town too?
Yeah, he's reopened at the theater. I think he's reopened. There's a question about whether he'll go back over to the Saks Theater. That's the bigger theater. But Nathan is still. I'm almost positive.
Because I'd heard that Caesars had some issues and they closed some venues and kind of limited the venues, and there are not as many places for people to play now as there were before, and so there are more magicians perhaps trying to find these fewer venues to get into. And not just magicians, but just other entertainers in general.
Entertainers in general are going to be affected by this. It's Cleopatra's Barge at Caesar's Palace was one of them. The Back Room at Bally's shut down. The Sin City Theater, which had Crazy Girls in it, and where Mortimer started, that's been shut down. The Chippendales Theater was among them at first, and they reopened that with Chippendales in it, so they aren't affected. But there have been a few small capacity rooms that have been. No, Anthony Coole's Experience is another one. A hypnotist. And
where'd he go? Or is he open yet?
He hasn't reopened. That venue at Paris was one of them that was closed.
Okay.
And what Caesars did was they just took a lot of them offline and said we don't need those shows to satisfy what we want to be as an entertainment company. And they're refocusing. They have a lot of shows already that we've gone through the whole list, but they also want to reemphasize their headliners, their superstars.
I see.
At Zappos and the Coliseum, and
right.
When you see that, and people like Donny Osmond, he's opening.
So it's the big names that will bring them into the casino, where they'll be doing the gambling and spend the nights and all that, I guess, rather than the smaller shows. They're thinking.
Yeah, primarily your draws are going to be those big ones: the Sting, Usher lineup, Reba and Brooks and Dunn, Rod Stewart this year at the Morrissey. Coliseum, lest we forget Morrissey. They'll bring big money in, but it's also, in my view, a lot of it is the image of Caesars Entertainment. What do you want to be known for?
Sure.
And I think that the new ownership group, which is from El Dorado Resorts, which is primarily based out of Reno, they saw the Las Vegas climate, and they saw a certain standard of big name entertainment that they wanted to be a part of. And when you're looking at everything you've got, you probably don't necessarily need those small kind of aftermarket little rooms and those smaller shows. I would argue that you should supply entertainment and amenities for all guests, even if it's the third or fourth decision on your trip. But they've decided to go in a different direction. They've emphasized too that entertainment is still going to be part of Caesars Entertainment.
Right. So,
and it's you can't argue. They just announced last week or a couple weeks ago that Kiss was going to be performing at Zappos Theater beginning in December for several shows.
Wow.
Into January and February.
I'm surprised they're not sold out on that already.
They've. I don't know how tickets are doing right now. They are starting to sell. They've got the dates announced, but they'll do very well there. Scorpions, a hard rock band, next May at Zappos. Stefani's ending. Shania Twain's ending her or continuing her run there. We'll probably see we will see the Backstreet Boys over the holidays at Zappos Theater. They'll do well. Christmas with the Backstreet Boys. It's magic in Las Vegas. Speaking of magic.
Yeah.
But, so it's just a matter of what you want to stand for, I think, as much as a business decision.
Do you think there'll be more hotels being constructed in casinos soon? I mean, they're always kind of going through that, but do you see any new things on the horizon that people are talking about or in construction currently?
I think the Fontainebleau on the Strip, which most recently been known as the Drew, which is on the northern part of the Strip. It's right across from Resorts World.
Sure.
It's been under construction and under multiple owners over the years. That we'll see that finished off. That'll be the next big thing on the Strip. I don't know if we'll see anything top to bottom, bottom to top. I mean, ground up.
Yeah.
Built in Las Vegas over the next few years. I think we had two.
Major
constructed, finished, and then another one revitalized. The old Hard Rock, which is now Virgin Hotel, has been completely renovated. And then Resorts World, $4.3 billion or whatever it is hotel on the north side of the Strip where the Stardust was. That was big, and then Circa downtown, huge project for downtown. Those three came in during pandemic.
And Circa is where Lady Luck was, right?
Circa is where Lady Luck is where Downtown Grand is. Circa is where Las Vegas Club was, and
Las
also
Vegas Club.
Glitter Gulch and a few other businesses down the. It's right across from the plaza on 1 Main Street. Plaza's on 1 Main Street, right where the city started. Right where the auction was held to create Las Vegas in 1905. That's where Circa is, right across from the Golden Gate, which was the first gambling hotel in Las Vegas. Was that one? So it's got a lot of history, but it's a pretty impressive place. So I don't think we're going to see anything at that scale for a while in Las Vegas.
Right. Just for a lot of things we've been talking about and why. The bottom line is the bottom line that they're looking at. So I'm sure that's true. Well, as we wrap up, and let me just say I really appreciate your time and everything. For people who, by the way, want to try to follow your articles and about what's happening in Las Vegas and also you, where can they go as far as, you can
find me
media and all that?
Yeah, you can find me at reviewjournal.com. The column is called Cats, K-A-T-S. The landing page is right on the home page. I say I'm on page 3A every day and online all the time. It's at Johnny Katz 1, the number 1 on Instagram, and Johnny Katz on Twitter, at Johnny Katz. And we're going to be firing up a video series, a video show, I guess, a video podcast here pretty soon in the next month or so. I used to have a podcast called Podcats. We're going to take that and graduate it to video now. So we've done one. We've already banked one show, and we're going to be coming back with that soon too. So you can find me all over the place. But with social media on a moment-to-moment basis is the first step.
One thing at a time. That's
yes.
Right. Well, the last thing I always like to close with, asking my guests what their magic word is, and I don't mean like abracadabra. What is your philosophy of life? It could be a phrase, motto, your chi. What is it that you live by when you wake up in the morning that kind of drives you? It's like, man, I want to get out of bed because this is moving me. What is it that you love?
Interesting. The whole thing's, for me, the whole thing starts with recovery, because I'm in recovery.
Okay.
Yeah. When I wake up in the morning, I'm grateful for recovery, maybe even grateful, but I would say recovery is the word, because if I hadn't gone through recovery, I wouldn't be grateful. None of this would be going on, and that's part of my life. Yeah, I'm about that. I'm about second chances in this world and maximizing the opportunities, and that all for me starts there.
Yeah, start at the beginning and to recover,
right,
and to kind of look forward to the future.
Exactly.
That's great. That's great. Johnny, thank you so very much for your time.
Pleasure.
I appreciate that. A lot of really great insight and everything, and kind of up to date of what's happening in Las Vegas today, too. So follow Johnny. Check him out.
Thanks for having me, Scott. It was a real pleasure.
So until next time, that was Johnny Katz. This is Scotty out. Wow, that was great. Thank you, Johnny, so very much for your time and for your insights and suggestions on places to go and shows to see while tourists are going to be visiting Las Vegas. And I certainly do appreciate your friendship and the time that you have given us. Wow, it sounds like there at the end, perhaps we might have had another podcast that we could have gotten into talking about recovery and second chances. But anyhow, we'll leave that for now. And I appreciate you being here. And I also appreciate each and every one of you listeners who tune in from week to week. And be sure that you subscribe to the pod letter, so that way you are kept up to date as to who I'm going to be having on each week and who's coming up the following week. We've got just a bunch of really interesting things coming up. And of course, this is the month of Halloween, which means it's Magic Month officially. And there are different ways in which you and your club can be recognized publicly by getting some publicity, since we are talking with Johnny Katz this week, who is the person who chronicles the entertainment business there in Las Vegas. Perhaps you might consider getting hold of someone in the media in your local area to try to promote Magic Month and Magic Week in particular. The final week there, beginning, I guess, with October the 25th and carrying on through Halloween, will be the Magic Week, culminating, of course, then on the 31st, which is Halloween, and the anniversary of Harry Houdini's death. And so there are a lot of things that are surrounding that you can certainly have tie-ins. And if you'll go to the Society of American Magicians website page, I believe they have some information there as well, where you can learn how to tie in your magic with the Magic Week officially and get some publicity for yourself and book more shows. So there you go. Well, listen, just a lot of stuff we talked about here this week, and next week we're going to be, I'll just give you a little clue, since it is going to be just prior to Halloween. We're going to, which of course I just mentioned was the anniversary of Harry Houdini's death. We're going to be talking with someone about Harry Houdini who is an expert, someone who has been on this podcast in the past. If you again subscribe to the pod letter, you will know right away who it's going to be. So until next week, stay well, get booked, and remember to always be thankful for recovery and wherever you are in your life. This is Scotty out.